we shall make a start. My name is Leigh, my glamorous assistant is Ruairi. You're getting the short straw today. We had really hoped to do a little thing in partnership with our friends at Scottish Government. Unfortunately, due to a whole load of logistical issues, our Scottish Government colleagues had to drop out, so you've got me instead. I am sorry for that. But we will mend and make do. A little bit about BJSS, just the very quick one, obligatory sales slide. BJSS are probably the largest IT consultancy that you've never heard of. There's about 3,000 of us in the UK, 26 offices throughout the world. We are high quality engineers at heart. Engineering is at the heart of everything we do. But we're also AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform partners. Worked with some really good organisations, and we do everything in terms of end-to-end transformation. And what we're very, very proud of and trumpeting today is that we were Global Healthcare Partner of the Year for AWS last year. And also in 2019, we were Public Sector Partner of the Year for our work with Disclosure Scotland. So very Scotland focused for us and the team. Yeah, that's a bit of background into BJSS. But we are here today to talk about our landing zone accelerator for AWS and what benefits and advantages that has. So because I'm not the expert, I did go back to our team at head office, and a guy called Mike Peachy, who was the original developer of the landing zone quite a few years ago, and I said, Mike, what is the landing zone? What can I tell people? And he told me this. It's a simple, extensible, standards compliant, self-managing, self-bootstrapping, Terraform native landing zone template with an account vending machine. That is a wonderful description. I thanked him warmly for that. And he's absolutely right. It is all those things. So I thought, but that doesn't help us. So maybe a picture. Maybe I can go through a picture. And he gave me that picture. That's the landing zone. So I'm going to take you through box by box. No, I'm not. So I needed to make it slightly simpler and distill it down. So I tried to do that and just explain very simply what it is, what the benefits are, what the features are, and why it's a good thing that you might want to think about and have a look at. So what is a cloud landing zone? It's really a framework for cloud adoption. It's quite a modern way of doing things now. In fact, all the cloud vendors are waking up to this. BJSS's landing zone was the only landing zone 4 years ago, and actually AWS used to recommend it as the landing zone of choice because they didn't have one. Everyone's getting a landing zone now, which is a good thing. But ours is still pretty good. I'm still very proud of it. And we've been doing it for a while. So it's a really good framework for cloud adoption. It has all the well-architected things that you would expect. It's standards compliant, and it gives you a whole load of consistency in terms of using rules, guide rails, best practices when you need to make lots of different accounts, lots of different workloads across your enterprise. Organizations have been in that sort of situation where they've started in the cloud, they've maybe taken a small workload to the cloud, they've started to experiment, they then do their second one, and they have to engineer the same things again. And look, software engineers, we're all quite good at that, right? We can put things in the right repositories, we can copy them again, we can do all of that stuff. But our landing zone accelerator takes all the hard work out of that. It packages everything up into reusable, repeatable chunks with all of the security controls that you would expect. So in the bad old days when we were thinking about building something in a data center, we had to go through lots of complicated things like procurement, buying tin, provisioning all that hardware, and then thinking about the architecture, security, all of those things are there. Public cloud gives us a lot of advantages and kind of lessens our time to value, which is really, really good. But where the accelerator comes in for us is it takes, components of your architecture, the governance, the processes, the tooling, the standards, it wraps all of those up and lets you repeat them every time you need a new account, every time you need a new environment, and it makes sure that all of that good consistency is there. So that's in a nutshell what a cloud landing zone is. Let's look at what the benefits of it are. I've kind of hinted about a few of them, but there's kind of top 5 benefits of the landing zone. A really good enhanced security posture. People love that stuff, We can wrap everything up in security guardrails, make sure that all the right controls are always consistently applied to everything that we do. And that's really good, particularly as you start to have multiple environments and deploy multiple workloads within the cloud, making sure that you've got some surety about the fact that they're all secured in the same way, they've all got the same controls. There's no opportunity for engineers to introduce errors, misconfigurations. The best of us do it, right? And the landing zone accelerator helps solve some of that problem. As I've already said, it kind of reduces your time to value, it allows you to get environments out there really quickly. And what we'll show today is how you can get a new environment up in less than 3 minutes using the landing zone, which is really good, and it's something that Scottish Government have benefited from, and you'll hear a bit about. It gives you that improved predictability and consistency, really important because of all those standards. Improved resilience, because you've got that, you can react quickly, you can deploy new workloads whenever they're needed, you don't need to wait for engineers to work all their magic. The landing zone accelerator can stamp out those new environments, and that allows your business to innovate and respond to new challenges really quite quickly. You'll see a bit the quote from Scottish Government. They were able to stand up the Ukrainian refugee response within 3 minutes because they had the landing zone there. And that's something that any of you familiar with normal corporate governance would typically be a lot slower if it had to be done from scratch. And finally, increased observability. We all know our cloud platforms have some great observability tools within them, but there's always extra work. The more environments you have, the more workloads you deploy. Engineers spend an awful lot of time bringing all of that observability together into a single platform, or sometimes they don't, sometimes they have it across lots of different observability platforms. Landing Zone brings all of that together out of the box, works its magic. So those are the sort of top 5 benefits. I've got a little bit of a wordy slide, which I apologise for. But before we kind of show you some of the magic happening, we'll talk about the top 10 features. The key thing that our Landing Zone Accelerator provides is what we call the account vending machines. That's the core of what we're doing. Once we've done the configuration, which is all Terraform based, it's all standards, native Terraform, and everything that the Landing Zone Accelerator is doing it with AWS native services. So there's no proprietary tech in there that's doing anything unusual. It's just lots of really high quality, hard work engineering that's been done to make this thing fully standards compliant. And that account vending machine is kind of the core of it. Once you've got all of your configuration in there, once you've told it what kind of environments you want, the account vending machine can create new accounts, set up new workloads really quickly, applying all of those standards. And then there's a whole load of value adds that come along with it, depending on what you need as a business. So approval-based time limit's a really good one. You can set up accounts to have to only have approval during a set schedule. You can make them expire really quickly. You can make it very specific timescales that those are all valid for. You can have really good control over your cost management. So again, we all know it's quite easy to manage the cost of the cloud, but once you have multiple workloads, it can become a bit more complex to have a sort of holistic view. Again, everything done through Landing Zone puts all of your cost management in one place. It has detective guardrails, so that helps you sort of govern your resources, monitor processes, and will flag if something has gone wrong. It will halt processes if they're breaking your security policies, all of that good stuff. And it has really good development pipelines. So that's kind of how we automate the provisioning of the landing zone. Everything can be put into a repo, for example, in a GitHub repo, and that can also be executed. The account vending machine can execute against that GitHub repo and create environments from it. The last ones, I promise, after this it gets a little more interactive. Identity and access management, we all know how important that is. So having really good security, it uses the AWS IAM Center. Again, we're not doing anything proprietary, anything unusual. We've just done the hard work to make sure that it's all tied together. And so you can have all of those multiple accounts, but also integrated with your preferred identity provider. So for example, Scottish Government, they are heavily invested in Okta, so we can easily integrate Okta with the whole AWS platform and do that for every single environment that a customer like Scottish Government needs. Preventative guardrails is really good, so make sure that your accounts maintain their compliance. It will halt actions, it will stop things that would violate your policies, and all of that's implemented by service control policies in your AWS organisation. So again, native functionality, all wrapped up. Observability and security and logging, again, it solves that problem of having all these workloads that are disparate, but it brings them all together, allows you to do all of your logging in one place, all of your monitoring in one place. So those are kind of the top 10 features which I have spun through. But Ruairi, how does it work?
Find out.
Yeah. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, I'm not as much as a seasoned pro as Leigh, so I do have a couple of notes. So yeah, for those that haven't spoken to already, my name's Ruairi. I'm a platform engineer at BJSS, and for the past year, I've been working with Scottish Government to implement their landing zone and onboard a couple of workloads with them. Leigh's already talked about the benefits, etc. So what I'm going to do is just have a brief look into, it's a slightly simpler diagram than Leigh showed, a brief look into each of the core accounts. We'll have a look at the account vending machine, the guardrails that we deploy, and then we'll finish off with a demo because we're feeling a bit brave. So a key concept within the landing zone is a separation of core functionality into 4 dedicated accounts. So we've got the primary account, the shared services account, audit, and security. The primary account is the only account that you actually need to create yourself. Reason for that is, you have to give AWS a credit card to charge you. You have to go through a couple of manual steps. You want to secure your root user for that account because that's effectively the keys to the castle. So yeah, once you've set up your primary account, you can go ahead and run the landing zone. It's basically in the form of a bunch of Terraform code, a simple Terraform apply, and it's going to build your organization. You can see just here. It's also going to build out your core OU, which has got the shared services, audit, and security accounts. We'll take a little bit of a closer look into each account. So here comes that diagram again. So I won't go through every box, but a couple of key things to point out. In the top left here is where you have your AWS organization. So this is where we deploy our service control policies. So these play a big part in our preventative guardrails. So we'll go into a little bit more detail later on. You can see where we've got our OUs as well. So there's a couple of default OUs that we deploy, but really it's up to you to decide how you want to structure your organization based on your requirements. So the next thing to talk about in the primary account would probably be the orchestration. So this is effectively out of the box CI/CD. It's super useful. So if you have maybe 10, 20, 30 AWS accounts and you want to make a change to your platform, it's simple GitOps. All you need to do is push to the repository and code pipeline will go ahead and make those changes at once to all of your AVM accounts, which is pretty handy not having to do that manually. The last bit of the primary account I just wanted to have a quick look at was down here. This is our IAM Identity Center. So this is where we'll define the users that are going to use the platform, what groups they belong to, and all the permission sets, and so the actions that they can take. We'll attach the permission sets to the group and then the users to the group. And this is where we can sort of, with Scottish Government, we've integrated with their Okta SSO. So that's kind of where all that happens. So yeah, if you want to find out more about the primary account, you can come and speak to us at the stand after. Happy to go into more detail. So the next 3 accounts we're going to cover are part of that core organizational unit. So in there we've got the shared audit and security accounts, the shared services account. So this is where you want to deploy any sort of solution that you want to share with the rest of your vended accounts. The landing zone, it doesn't care, it's agnostic to what kind of solution that you're going to put in here, but a couple examples. If you want some sort of artifact repository, you can host a Nexus. Oh, what's going on? Is that the right one? All right, it's a different color. Anyway. So yeah, you can use a share account to host a Nexus server, a Terraform registry, Jenkins server, something like that. And then using the AVM, every time you vend an account, you can configure your vended account to speak to that service. A lot of people also deploy their VPC in there. So if you want to share some subnets or something with vended accounts, you can do that there as well. Some people have a completely set, I think we have a client down in England, that they have a specific network account, so they just use shared services for actual service and then segregate that network account. In the middle of the screen is our audit account. So here you can see a bunch of S3 buckets. They take in logs from all of your vended accounts. What's good about that is if you were just storing your logs in your vended account, whenever you delete that account, you're going to lose the logs with it. So basically by putting everything into this audit account, you can store those logs in there indefinitely. And yeah, literally everything goes in there. So any guard duty, security hub logs, Route 53 backups kind of thing, all get stored in there. The last account is a security account. So this is where we hold our master instances of any AWS services. So for example, we've got guard duty, security hub. Basically by keeping this in a segregated account, if you have some security developers or security operations folk, you can give them access into this account and they can basically have a look and they can assess the security posture of your organization just through that one account. The benefit of that is if you're the person that's using the vended account, you can also see how your account is doing security-wise. You don't have access to other workloads you might not need access to. So we'll move on and we'll just talk about the guardrails. So these tend to fit in to sort of three categories of the preventative guardrails. They're usually the service control policies that I talked about earlier. The preventative guardrails, yeah, there's service control policies. Detective guardrails tend to be your AWS services like guard duty, the intelligent threat detection, security hub, things like that. The remedial guardrails, they'll tend to take the form of a Lambda function that can basically go through, assume a role in each of your vended account and enforce best practices. An example of a remedial guardrail would be, so if you wanted to create an IAM user and you attach that policy to the user directly, that goes against best practice, right? We should be attaching the permissions to the group and then the user to the group. So we have a Lambda function that will go through, and if it sees any policies that are directly attached to a user, we'll detach them. We won't delete them, because obviously you still want your policy there, but at least then you're following the best practice. And again, this concept of the centralized security tooling, so we'll talk about it when we get to the AVM. So what the AVM basically allows you to do is anyone in your organization can walk up and say, I need an AWS account. And we can have that account in 3 minutes, as we'll just see. And you know at the point where you vend that account that it's meeting all of your security controls, et cetera, et cetera. So we have our guardrails here, which is the account baseline. So this is where we'll deploy security hub, guard duty. Not only is it switched on in that account, but all of the data is going into the security account. Same with CloudTrail. CloudTrail is going to be set up in your vended account, but all of that data is going to go back into the master instance of CloudTrail. So that's super useful. So basically, whenever you vend an account, you have enough confidence that the person that's using the account isn't going to do anything too drastic to break the security posture of your organization. But at the same time, they still have flexibility to do whatever they want within that account. So that's the AVM. I'll hand back to Leigh, talk about the Scottish Government, and then we'll try the demo, yeah.
Let's do it. Exciting. Thank you, Ruairi. Oh yeah, that was your security posture. Did you want to talk about the green bar? You forgot to talk about the green bar. Get the green bar later. All right. He's got a great story around the green bar. So let's very quickly talk about what we did with Scottish Government Agriculture and Rural Economy. As Ruairi said, we've been working with them for several years actually. So we originally gave them a very early version of Landing Zone, I think 3 years ago. and in the last 6 months or so, they've now got the latest version of the landing zone. It doesn't take that long to deploy landing zone, it's worth saying. So we would normally recommend, if any of you wanted it, we typically work with you for about 6 weeks. So 2-week discovery to see what does your business look like, what kind of controls do you need, what kind of policies do you need, how would you want to use landing zone. About 2 weeks to install, configure, test, make sure it's all working, and then about 2 weeks to hand it over to you, upskill you, and then leave you with it. Something so you can be up and running as fast as that. That's kind of typically what we would do, sort of a 6-week exercise. But of course, if you then have a whole load of interesting customizations, interesting modules that you want to use, we can work with you on that as well. So Scottish Government Agriculture and Rural Economy, I'm not sure if any of you know, but kind of this is what they do. They're responsible for supporting Scotland's sustainable economic growth in agriculture, the food industry and rural areas through all of that stuff. The Common Agricultural Policy is probably one of the most important parts. So ARE, it's a strange acronym, so when you see it, it looks like bad grammar whenever I say it on screens, but ARE, they manage all the payments for farmers and for all the sort of the agricultural economy, the grants that used to come from the EU and now go through CAP. Those are really big business critical parts of Scottish Government. When things go wrong with payments and things go wrong with ARE processes, ministers gets woken up and headlines hit the front page of the Herald and all that kind of stuff. It is a really significant part of Scottish Government. And as such, you know, they've got an awful lot of kind of legacy applications. Everything's running on well-established but quite old applications, and they are on a program of transformation, as a lot of organizations are. So whilst that stuff is rock solid, it needs to move at some point from the data center and the Oracle backend and all the horrible stuff. It needs to move towards the cloud, and ARE are doing it very much workload by workload. All of those things coming down the track, and what BJSS has been helping with is making sure that the platform is in place on AWS with the landing zone. So as these workloads come down, and it could be different suppliers that are transforming those workloads and presenting them to the cloud, ARE can just very quickly create an environment which they are confident has all of their controls, all of their standards in. So that's kind of why they're using us and where they're getting most value from the accelerator, with all those kind of specific Scottish Government requirements there. So for example, they need a lot of their legacy, all of their new systems still to talk to the old ones which are in the data center. So all that networking is kind of layered in there, and every new account that gets vended gets access to the back-end services in the old data center. Really cool accelerator feature, which would normally take network engineers quite a long time to individually engineer for every single workload, and loads of other stuff. You've heard about Okta integration. So as I say, we've helped them with that. This is a lovely quote from Neil, who couldn't be here today, which you can read. But this, you know, they're just delighted with our landing zone accelerator. It allows them to spin up environments within minutes. And the stuff, you know, Ruairi and I, we're engineers at heart. We love technology, and that's why we get up in the morning. But when you hear things like that, that's why we go home with a smile, you know, being able to stand up things like the Ukrainian refugee response and Scotland's redress service within minutes. ARE were able to do that for Scottish Government. You know, that's really good. That's kind of the power of the accelerator and why we do it. So, quick drum roll. Are we ready? We're going to swap laptops.
Swap laptops, and so we don't cause too much chaos. Cool. So for the demo, what we're going to do is vend a brand new account within our organization. We're going to basically deploy some Terraform code that builds an S3 website bucket. Super simple. Yeah, let's get started. So first of all, I'll show you. So this is just a SSO that we've made for the purposes of this demo. So you can see here, SG ARE Dev would be our primary account, and then we have our security, shared, and audit accounts, and then just a couple accounts that we've vended to test out. So yeah, that's the single sign-on side of things. So all we need to do to deploy a new account in the landing zone is in this etc folder. It's basically done on a file naming convention, so whenever we say env, we know that we're creating a new environment, followed by the region and then the name of the environment. So all we have to do is create a file in here. I've done it already because I forget how to type when people are looking at me. So yeah, all we need to do is pass in these are the only requests, so all we need is 4 variables and we can vend an account. For the purposes of the demo, I've turned on public access to the S3 bucket. Any security people, sorry. And then, so this Terraform workspace, this is an example of how you can sort of customize this landing zone to make it right for your organization. So at ARE, they use Terraform Cloud to securely manage their Terraform state. So what we've done with the account vending machine is whenever you vend a brand new account, we also create a Terraform workspace, which basically allows you to configure your repo with the workspace, and within minutes you can be deploying Terraform code. So yeah, we'll get started. So as I said, in the primary account there is a CI/CD set up, but at ARE we have a Bastion host as well. So this helps for kind of things that it's kind of niche use cases. So if you're ever trying to import a resource into Terraform state, we could do that through the Bastion host rather than. Okay, good to know. Vend away. So I'm going to hit apply. Usually you'd want to do a plan, but I've tested it already, so I'm going to hit a plan and then we can talk when it's running. Yeah. Cool. So just quickly, the state for the landing zone is all managed by a library that we have at BJSS called Terraform Scaffold. So basically, you have this usual song and dance where if you want to store your Terraform state in an S3 bucket, but you also want to create that S3 bucket with Terraform, how would you do that? So Terraform Scaffold basically handles the bootstrap process for that. So first of all, it will create the S3 bucket for every component, we have a state. So we have a state for the landing zone that deploys the core accounts, state for the pipelines, which is in the primary account, and then the SSO. And every AVM will get its own account, its own Terraform state as well. So yeah, while that's running, we'll have a look at the Terraform code that we're going to deploy. So this is just a super simple S3 bucket. We've enabled website configuration, done the ACL, and then we've just uploaded a simple index.html file. I'm not a web developer, so when you see the website come up, I'm sure that'll be hilarious. So yeah, now I can have a look back at the SSO area, and the account should be there. Yeah. So now we can see the digit demo account has appeared in our SSO. So 2, 3, 4 minutes to vend a new account. Pretty cool, right? This account follows AWS best practices. You're literally ready to start deploying your workload. So we'll have a quick look into Terraform Cloud as well. So just refresh and hopefully the workspace should come up. Yeah, so we can see here, digit demo workspace. This is where we're going to store all the state and manage the Terraform runs. So all you need to do to configure your workspace is literally copy this backend.tf file and put it into your repository. So we'll do that now. There we go. So now it should be good to just go ahead and run my Terraform in it, set up the state, etc., etc. Just double check that's finished. So yeah, that's finished. It's 200 resources that it adds. That's all the guardrails, all your shared VPC kind of things. So we can go ahead and run our Terraform apply. We'll auto approve just for time. Yep, very good. So we will navigate into our, so yeah, we can see here, this is the plan running. So automatically, you've got plans that you can share with the rest of your team. An error comes up in your Terraform plan. It's the worst thing. You can't show the error to anybody because it's on your own machine. You've got shared plans there, and it helps with collaboration quite a lot. So hopefully jump in here. Navigate to S3. There we can see our digit demo bucket. We've got objects can be public because we configured it to be that way. We'll have a scroll down, we'll get the website endpoint, and we can see the HTML that ChatGPT wrote for me. Oh, or not. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, we don't have that bucket policy there. Okay, so yeah, we can just add in a simple bucket policy to get this working if we've got enough time. Should have got ChatGPT to write my Terraform code. Ta-da. There we go.
So in the interest of time, I know we were probably had a couple of summary slides, but you've seen hopefully the power of it. You know, the landing zone, it's Terraform native. It works with all the AWS native services. There's nothing proprietary in there. You can take that, you can make the code your own, you can do what you like with it. But it's a really consistent, strong, secure way to deploy AWS environments. And actually, whilst we're on an AWS day-to-day, we also have an Azure landing zone exactly the same, does all of the same things, and the multi-cloud gives you all the same controls using all the Azure native services as well. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time.